Lesnar returning to the ring. You have Misha Tate. It was supposed to be John Bone Jones' big fight too, but he blew that. Blew that big time. I think he had failed his second drug test today, and ended up probably going to be a long time before we see John Bone Jones again. Can't remember who filled in because it was supposed to be Silva versus Jones, I believe, but that's not going to be the case anymore since he failed another drug test, and just sad that probably one of their best fighters has to throw their career away like that. So with that being said, too, we're gonna dive into again. You listen to Sports Talk 920, and just to give usually, back in the old days, we give out the phone number, but unfortunately can't call you. And welcome to join us in our chat room here and be a part of the show there. Or you can follow us all week long too, and that's on Twitter at ST920 at Twitter.com and on our Facebook page at Facebook.com/ST920. And of course on our blog, like I said, we do have our picks for the 2016 MLB All-Star Game, our starters at least. You check that out on our blog at sportstalk920.blogspot.com. So in the NFL right now, and especially again if you're new to the show, we're here in I guess I'm in Indiana, but we're both Rudy and I are both from Green Bay, and I guess we haven't had Rudy on yet, but at least on Spreaker here, but we're Packer fans, and a lot of times we'll spend time talking about the Green Bay Packers. But of course, in the news, just kind of surprised when I saw the headline for it. But Paul Hornung is suing the helmet company Rydell for, kind of causing head injuries or concussions or whatnot. I didn't see a figure. I didn't really read too much into it. I don't know if that much is quite known about it, but kind of interesting. A player that played back in the 60s. Back when they had plastic helmets. They didn't have the technology and even the studies back then. You can say one thing. One thing I think about. Probably around the 90s, early 2000s players that I think a little bit more studies and stuff were done. You could see some more of the ill effects. And obviously, during that time, I think in the 60s when you were going from no face masks and they were still transitioning to, Bart Starr still had the one bar face mask. Some, players I think before that didn't have any, they're going from the leather helmet, stuff like that. They were trying to learn and figure out what they could use. They didn't have, some of the synthetic metals and plastics that they use nowadays, not just in helmets, but they didn't have some of the resources that we have now to use for safety. So it's I don't know if that's his angle that Rydell knew more back then. They could have made better helmets. I don't know. You go look back in hockey back in those days. I think they still wore no helmets. Even goalies didn't wear helmets, but probably back then it was just crazy. Or just the Jason style face for goalie mask, probably at that point. But it's kind of weird, it's I guess his right to do so if he felt there was some wrongdoing, and maybe once we get all the facts in, it'll start to make a little bit more sense. Because I think a lot of those guys, if it's something to do with to kind of get more notice out there, to get some of these older players that are kind of in the golden years of their lives, and especially you look at a lot of those the Packers from that era are either in rough shape or a lot of them have passed away in recent years. Maybe it's something to take care of them. Maybe maybe it has something tied to do with Bart Starr too. That with a lot of his health issues that he's been having with his stroke and all, and some of his other maybe health issues there too. That it's a way. Maybe he's going broke. I don't know. That's just total speculation there, but it's something to do with to help some of the other players out, or not just for the Packers, but some of those other NFL alumni. It's a pretty tight knit group with those guys, but it'll be interesting to see when, I guess, if I read more into it or more details come out on that. And the other thing too is that, of course, with the Hall of Fame stuff coming up here in a little under a month, or about a month right now, the Hall of Fame game starts. The Hall of Fame activities will be in Canton. Of course, Brett Favre, the Packers, longtime Packers quarterback, getting in the Hall of Fame. One guy that's, at least the family of Jerry Kramer, is trying to get him into the Hall of Fame. One of the staples of that offensive line. And still, I think families kind of talking, like I did earlier with those players from the golden era of the Green Bay Packers, the Vince Lombardi Packers, that a lot of them are getting close to passing away or moving on, and maybe want to get him in the Hall of Fame before he passes away, because right now it does have that really strong feeling, kind of like Kenny Stabler, that many people that when he was alive didn't, just because they didn't like him, weren't going to vote him in, and all of a sudden magically he passes away, and then the next year he gets elected into the Hall of Fame. And sometimes, unfortunately, that's how stuff like that does come about. It would be a shame if it waits that long, because I think it's almost as if he's not in right now, because so many other Packers from that era are in. Forrest Gregg. Wow, that was way too hard for me to. Sorry, reading something on ESPN, but Paul Hornung, Taylor, Starr, a bunch of those players, back Nitschke, a bunch of those guys, or Willie Davis in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, that they feel like, I don't know if they had to put a separate room up or something to get everyone in there, but and they'll have to wait to get Kramer in there. But with that being said, too, again, 1 month the Packers will start their training, or a couple weeks, I think, here. The players, I think, almost right now, they're going to start kind of transitioning their lives into going into that starting the season mode, starting that training camp. And again, as I said, the Packers and Colts will play in the Hall of Fame game coming up here in not too long, August 7th. So that's coming up. So obviously NFL will be a big thing here on Sports Talk 920, and I can't wait. It's we're in those dead days of summer, but not too much longer. We'll be into the hot and heated stuff of the NFL football, and should be fun. So stay tuned more for football talk. That's when, especially once we get Rudy on, things will get interesting. The show is called Sports Talk 920, internet-worthy debate, and once the season gets going, it should be interesting, because that's when me and Rudy sometimes agree to disagree, or not even agree to disagree. We just disagree. But with that being said, moving on to NASCAR, another Saturday night race coming up. We had the Xfinity race tonight. Kyle Busch did win that. Thursday night we had the Truck Series race. William Byron, how about that? Winning his fourth truck race. He's a rookie in only 10 races that the Truck Series has ran so far. And really, before I kind of even go back to what happened in Daytona, we did talk about the Xfinity race last week, and then not a whole lot. Brad Keselowski had a dominant car, and not a whole lot happened in the Cup race. Nothing too exciting. They had the big ones, stuff that kind of typically happens. But anyway, what happened with William Byron, I think I've said this on Sports Talk 920 before, with a lot of these Toyota guys that are, there's I guess two things. One thing I probably haven't brought up, and that is I kind of scatterbrained. But actually, first off, I'll say, you wonder when these guys come up. Say if William Byron or Eric Jones, if they get into a situation where they're going to be taking over for Matt Kenseth, who's getting up there in age. Carl Edwards, maybe not quite there yet, but I guess not the youngest. Once some of these guys come up, because I think Denny Hamlin has a few more years left realistically. Kyle Busch, he's only 31 years old. Carl Edwards probably still in his mid 30s, so he could easily have anywhere from like 7 to 15 years to go if he really wanted to, or somewhere around there. So there's going to be, I think, a big block at the top, and obviously, I think that was part of the reason why they got, in with Furniture Row Motorsports to get Martin Truex Jr. because that team wanted to have a second car team, and maybe if they bring like Eric Jones up next year, for Furniture Row, and they can run maybe even part-time with that team. I don't know what their plans are. Maybe there's other kind of charter teams that they'll bring up. I mean, something similar that you see, I guess right now, the kind of final year they can do that. Cole Custer running for Junior Motorsports, but basically being groomed for Stewart-Haas Racing. So, there might be other teams that they can kind of go with. They're kind of like Ryan Blaney, a Penske driver right now, filling, with, kind of basically being now the third Penske car with the Wood Brothers 21 car. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that. I mean, I think Ty Dillon running the 95 car, that LeVer family, whatever the team's called, racing, basically a part-time fourth Childress car. I think you're going to see a lot more of that. And I'm again, one's curious to see if these guys, they'll maybe chalk it up because, oh well, they're running for Furniture Row. Eric Jones is running for Furniture Row Motorsports. It's not Joe Gibbs equipment. They're not fully Joe Gibbs equipment, so that's why he's not running as well. That's why he's a 20th place guy, not a top 10 guy every week. But really, I think we've seen what Martin Truex Jr. has been doing that, it's just as well. And I think, even situations like this, I mean, basically with Stewart-Haas leaving Chevy, Rick Hendrick is basically losing 4 cars. I mean, he said that he would take any car, switch it up any week, because basically, I don't know if that was part of the reason why Stewart-Haas is leaving Chevy, because Stewart-Haas kind of wants to do it on their own now. Basically kind of coming out and saying that, yeah, we provide almost everything for Stewart-Haas Racing. They're basically the 5, 6, 7, and 8 drivers for Hendrick Motorsports. And I think that's kind of what we see with Martin Truex too. When the Gibbs cars are fast, usually you're going to see Martin Truex Jr. fast and vice versa, except for I think there was one race where it wasn't the case. So it's not quite every time, but I think you usually do see that is going to be the case. But so I guess to me that's not going to be a very valid excuse if some of these young guys can't perform, because again, going back to what I'm saying, William Byron, winning 4 races in the Truck Series, it's such a young kid in the first 10. I mean, it is impressive. I'm not trying to take too much away from him. I'm not saying, I mean, he could be a really good race car driver. I don't know. So this could be partly unfair of me for even saying. But you kind of got to wonder. I mean, going back to when Sam Hornish Jr. ran the Kyle Busch, Kyle Busch's car, the 18 car, back in Iowa, and he won it. And we've seen Sam Hornish Jr., I think he's gotten a couple of Xfinity Series wins in the past, not many, and not even a championship contender, I think, by any means. And obviously in the Cup Series, basically maybe on a good day he's a mid-pack guy. but with that being said, he was gone for how many months or whatever without even being in a race car.